A woman recently had 3 colleagues fired for commenting on their female co-workers. Now, this happened during a night out. She then reported the matter to the company's HR department. The woman says she overheard 3 of her male colleagues ranking the women in her office, including herself, on what they referred to as the hot list. Nicol Myburgh, head of human resources company CRS Technologies, is in studio with me to discuss this and give us some insights. Nicol, thank you so much for coming through. So this is an interesting case, isn't it? I mean, yes. You would think this happened off-site. Therefore, it has nothing to do with the employer. You'd be wrong, wouldn't you?
Yes, no, certainly. What it comes down to is employers have a right to a harmonious workplace. Anything that disrupts that harmony is actionable and could actually lead to dismissal.
So what's the heart of the employer's expectation that the conduct off-site, away from everything at work and after working hours, should still comply with the conduct as expected in a working environment?
In this specific case, it could potentially amount to sexual harassment. And looking at the circumstances, that could cause further issues when everyone's back at the office. That disrupts effectively the harmony, and that affects the employer's business.
But talk to me about the element, we'll get to the sexual harassment element of it. But even without the sexual harassment, these colleagues gossiping about their co-workers would still have been actionable.
Yes, it would have been actionable. And I'm not saying to the extent of dismissal, everything's on a case-to-case basis, but anything that affects the harmony at the business, that's definitely actionable.
Does this have to do with the employer-employee relationship being continuous 24 hours a day?
Yes, no, certainly. It's anything outside of work could still impact work, especially with colleagues going out together.
Yeah.
That impacts the working relationship.
And is it along the same scale that employers base their expectations of conduct by employees on social media, for example?
Yes.
Does that fall along the same scale?
Yes, exactly. And especially of social media, that's something that you put out there in the public space. On that same Facebook profile or whatever social media profile, you say where you work. So you are a representative of your company wherever you are.
We carry the brands that we work for 24/7. So our behavior reflects on the employer.
Yes, no, exactly true.
So talk to me about how this fits in, though, with the law. Does this have to do with employment equity? Because there is no provision that specifically, prohibits gossip, office gossip. I mean, as we speak right now, part of the defense of the mayor of Tshwane, for example, is that he says people gossip about their colleagues all the time. So employment equity, the Labour Relations Act, none of those laws create this expectation that you can't speak ill of your co-workers, but the expectation is still there nonetheless.
Yes, it comes right back down to the harmony, and in this case specifically, you look at the sexual harassment element and the gender element of it, and that certainly intensifies it. But yes.
Yeah. So the element of the harassment part of it, that's what really in this particular case possibly made it worse, right?
Yes, it certainly did. But it's also interesting enough, I wouldn't actually define this harassment. We have a code of good practice on sexual harassment in the workplace, and that defines what sexual harassment is. And what it effectively is any unwanted sexual conduct.
Yeah.
And the conduct turns into harassment when it's either persistent or once-off case could still count, depending on the merits of that specific case.
Yeah.
And also whether or not the person has made it clear that the actions are offensive, and whether or not the employee should have known it's offensive or not. Here we're talking about something, it's the lady overheard 3 of her colleagues discussing something. It wasn't directed at her, but still she was offended by it. So I would say this falls within the space of disrupting harmony rather than sexual harassment.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction that you make, isn't it? Because from my understanding, the Code of Good Practice says that in the case of words that amount to sexual harassment, they need to be said in the presence of the person who is the victim?
Yes. Yes, certainly. It needs, well, not necessarily in the present, it has to be directed at someone.
Yeah.
This was something meant innocently. It was a discussion between the men, and the lady happened to overhear it, and she was offended by it.
Yeah.
And then it got actioned.
Right. All right, thank you so much for coming through. Nicol Myburgh talking to me about an interesting case in which a woman got her colleagues expelled after they had a conversation away from the work environment in which they were talking about their female colleagues and basically ranking them in terms of what they called a hot list. And she overheard the conversation, reported it to HR, and they were fired. There you have it. You've been warned. The employer-employee relationship continues 24 hours a day.